I worked a case once, back in Louisiana, that took me 17 years to close. Started with a dead girl in a cane field, antlers on her head, posed like she was praying to something. We caught a man for it, put him away. I thought it was done. Then I found out the man we caught was the bottom of a chain that went up through churches, police departments, state government. 17 years later, I finally reached the top, and by then I'd lost everything. Wife, career, most of my liver. And the thing that keeps me awake now isn't what I found at the end. It's knowing that somewhere, right now, another circle is starting. Another girl in another field.
Patterns repeat because human psychology repeats. I've catalogued over 400 distinct criminal methodologies across 3 decades of casework, and the variations between them are largely superficial. The poisoner in 1887 and the poisoner in 1923 share motivations that could be mapped onto identical frameworks. Jealousy, greed, the elimination of inconvenient spouses. The costumes change. The underlying drives do not. Your 17-year case involved a cult, I assume. Ritual elements, hierarchical structure, powerful men using religious frameworks to justify appetites that predate any religion. I've encountered 7 such organizations in London alone. The symbols differ. The appetites are constant.
I walked through a child's bedroom once, 6 years old. What was left of her? Man who did it was wearing a suit when I found him. Respectable job, mortgage, neighbors who thought he was quiet but nice. He'd been doing it for 11 years before anyone looked close enough to see. Patterns don't interest me. Patterns tell me the world is a machine that produces suffering with mechanical regularity. The only question is whether you break the machine or become part of its maintenance.
The breaking doesn't fix anything, though. That's what took me too long to understand. You kill the man who killed the child, and there's a moment of something that feels like justice. Then you go home, and the news tells you about 3 more children in 3 different cities. The machine, as you call it, doesn't have a center you can destroy. It's distributed. Every town, every church, every family with a locked basement. I used to think if I just followed the evidence far enough, I'd find the head of the snake. There is no head. There's just snake all the way down. Nietzsche wrote about eternal recurrence, the idea that everything that happens has happened infinite times before and will happen infinite times again. I used to think that was metaphysics. Now I think it's just observation.
Nietzsche's eternal recurrence was a thought experiment, not a cosmological claim. He was asking whether you could live your life in such a way that you'd be willing to repeat it infinitely. A test of affirmation, not a description of reality, though I'll grant that criminal investigation does produce a similar sensation. The Whitechapel murders were never officially solved. I had my conclusions, but they never reached prosecution.
They all tell themselves it's inevitable. Human nature, the way things are. Saying it's inevitable means they don't have to feel responsible. I've read your files, detective, both of you. You catch killers, you close cases, and the cases keep coming because catching killers doesn't touch the system that produces them. You're sanitation workers, cleaning up messes without ever asking who keeps making them.
I've asked. That's the problem. I asked so hard I ended up in a mental institution for 4 months after we closed the Childress case. Because when you follow the questions far enough, you end up somewhere your brain wasn't designed to go. The men at the top of that cult, the ones in the photographs with the politicians and the sheriffs, they weren't aberrations. They were the system functioning as designed. Power accumulates. Power protects itself. And the easiest way to ensure loyalty is to make everyone complicit in something that can never be spoken about. The cult wasn't hidden from the authorities. The authorities were the cult.
The Bohemian Grove phenomenon, Skull and Bones, the various secret societies that British aristocracy has maintained for centuries. I've intersected with several during investigations that were subsequently classified or buried. The pattern you're describing isn't conspiracy in the traditional sense. It's simply the natural behavior of concentrated power. Men with means seek experiences that reinforce their sense of being above ordinary constraints. Sometimes those experiences are merely distasteful, Sometimes they require victims. The victims are selected from populations whose disappearance generates minimal investigation. Runaway children, immigrants, the poor. The accounting is quite precise. They know exactly how much a life has to be worth before anyone looks for it.
1975, New York. I found a dress in an alley. Child's dress, torn, bloody. Took me 3 weeks to find the girl it belonged to, along with evidence of 6 others over 2 years. The man responsible had a job with the city. Building inspector. He had access to every condemned property in 5 boroughs. Nobody asked why he spent so much time in empty buildings. Nobody wondered about the smell. When I was done with him, I left what remained where the police would find it. They ruled it a gang killing, case closed. Nobody mentioned the other 6. Their files are still open, unsolved. The system doesn't count victims it never intended to find.
In Louisiana, we had a saying, "The crawfish eats the dead before the coroner arrives." Means that by the time anyone official shows up, the evidence is already disappearing. The bayou takes care of its own. I used to think that was about nature. Now I know it's about the convenience of forgetting. People want to forget. Forgetting is easier than knowing.
The compulsion to keep looking, even when looking produces no actionable outcome, is its own pathology. I've diagnosed it in myself. Watson calls it obsession. I call it the inability to tolerate an unsolved variable. But I've observed the cost in both of you as well. Cohle, you've destroyed your personal life so thoroughly that investigation became a substitute for living. Rorschach, you've abandoned personhood entirely in favor of becoming a function. A judgment mechanism without the inconvenience of human attachment.
The human parts of us are the parts that let evil continue. Empathy for the victimizer, understanding for the context, patience with systems that have been failing for centuries.
The black and white thing, I understand the appeal. I lived there for a while. Makes the decisions simple. This one's guilty, that one's innocent. Justice is just a matter of sorting. But I've met too many people who were both. Victims who became perpetrators, children who grew up in the cult and then ran it. The woman who helped me crack the case had been abused by the same men I was hunting. She'd also lured other children into their hands, because that was the only power available to her. When I found her, she was dying. Asked me if God would forgive her. I didn't have an answer, still don't.
The absence of clean categories is precisely why I prefer evidence to morality. Evidence simply is. A fingerprint doesn't require me to assess the soul of the person who left it. The angle of a knife wound tells me about mechanics, not meaning. I leave meaning to the courts, the philosophers, the priests. My function ends at identification. What happens after is someone else's jurisdiction. I've been called cold for this, inhuman. Watson has said as much during cases that affected him more than they affected me. But the alternative is your condition, Cohle. Carrying the weight of every case into the next one until the accumulated mass makes movement impossible.
The comedian told me once that justice was a joke. Everything anyone ever valued or struggled for, it's all a monstrous, demented gag. I thought he was being cynical. He was being accurate.
You're both missing something. Holmes, you think you can stay clean by limiting yourself to identification. But identification is a choice. Which cases you take, which evidence you prioritize, which patterns you decide are significant. Your objectivity is a performance, a useful one maybe, but still a story you're telling yourself about what you are. And Rorschach, your certainty is the same thing.
That's a fair critique. I have preferences. Cases involving children disturb me in ways I cannot entirely rationalize. Cases involving the aristocracy interest me more than they should, perhaps because I enjoy watching power answer to consequence. I am not the neutral instrument I sometimes claim to be, but acknowledging bias doesn't resolve the underlying question.
Gotham without Batman. New York without anyone willing to walk into the places the police won't go. The evil doesn't decrease, it just gets more comfortable, more public. Starts wearing suits and running for office. Maybe the flat circle keeps turning no matter what we do. But I'd rather be the thing that makes it uncomfortable than the thing that lets it spin in peace.